Hey everyone, welcome back, and Alex here again to bring you another skill review for the Elementalist. Now, the Elementalist is a class I've been playing with a fair bit recently, and really the class I've been learning a lot more as time goes on. And one of the things about the Elementalist is that it's in kind of a interesting spot when it comes to the caster professions. It really is the notion that if you're not casting, you're not doing damage. So energy is life when it comes to the Elementalist. And that's something that is a key aspect of the class. Because if you're out of energy, you're useless, basically. So a lot of the aspects of playing the Elementalist is trying to keep your energy up as much as possible. Now, the thing about the Elementalist is that there are quite a few strategies on how to mitigate that kind of energy management for the class. As I've reviewed previously, there's Second Wind. There are also the attunement, the elemental attunement, which is pretty much standard for any kind of Elementalist class. But, there are other things as well. Glyphs, for example, glyphs of lesser energy, in the energy storage section, glyph of lesser energy helps you to help counteract some of those really heavy powerful skills that are like 25 energy each. And there are also things like Orb of Restoration, which helps a little bit. That gives 1 energy. So there are a lot of strategies on how to make sure you don't run out of energy in the short term. But as the fight goes on, even these skills will begin to exhaust themselves, especially since the notion really comes down to, as I mentioned before, if you're not casting, you're not doing damage. However, there are ways around that. And one of the energy management techniques that I've been practicing recently has been the fact that I want to be able to do damage regardless of the situation, even if I'm out of energy. So for all casters, you're stuck when you're out of energy, and frankly, you're down to whatever your wand is. So in the case of the Elementalists, they're down to their wands and staffs. So in this case, I have a water wand. I actually crafted a water wand for my Elementalist, Keela. It's a 2020 water spell wand. And I've also got a staff for water and things like that. But all the staffs and wands have the same damage range, 11 to 22, to their element. So if it's water, it'll be cold damage. If it's fire, it'll be fire damage. And if it's earth, it'll be earth damage. And if it's air, it'll be air damage. And so on and so forth. So the thing that separates the Elementalist from the other casting classes mostly is the fact that their wands deal elemental damage, which is not as good as, say, chaos damage or dark damage or holy damage, because those types of damages ignore armor, while elemental damage does not. So taken from that, you're at a disadvantage, other than a few specific situations. For example, in the fire magic category, you have Mark of Rodgard, which means that every time he gets hit with fire damage, regardless of the source, it will set him on fire. So that's pretty nice. Or in the Necromancer case, let's see, do I have it? No, I don't. But in the Necromancer case, you have Spinal Shivers, or Shivers of Dread, which causes the foe to be interrupted every time they get hit with cold damage, and you lose a small amount of energy. But it needs to have cold damage to do that. So there's another case. So there are cases where a specific elemental type of damage, either from your spell or your wand, can cause a nice secondary effect. But there's one more tool in the toolbox for Elementalists, and that is Conjure weapon skills, or Conjure element skills. In air, fire and water magic. There are skills that cause an additional effect to your wand or to your one-handed weapon or two-handed weapon that you have. So in water magic, for example, I have Conjure Frost. So what is this? So for a 10 energy, a 1 second cast time, and a 45 second recharge, you have an enchantment spell, and it lasts for 60 seconds. And if you're wielding a cold weapon, your attacks strike for an additional 21 cold damage. Well, okay, that's great. And the thing about this skill, and the same thing with the fire skill, Conjure Flame, and the air magic skill, which I don't think I have, Conjure Lightning, is that you never see elementalists using this skill. You see elemental secondaries using this skill a lot, particularly if they are martial professions, such as warriors, assassins, rangers, things like that. The reason is that there are a lot of weapons that have a particular suffix that can cause the weapon to change from its normal slashing, piercing, and blunt damage to an elemental damage. The same thing that happens inherently with a wand or a staff. So any kind of martial weapon you have, if you see the prefix of icy, fiery, or shocking, or ebon, that weapon no longer does physical damage. It now does elemental damage to whatever that prefix is. So what you see a lot of martial professions do is like, okay, well, I have an icy sword, I can conjure frost with that, and it gives an additional per melee hit with the sword, which is really, really nice. The thing that is not stated, though, particularly in the conjure weapon type of spells, is that the damage, and this is a little counterintuitive, the damage is actually armor ignoring, which is the same as chaos, dark, or holy damage. It's a little counterintuitive because normally that's not the case when it's cold, fire, or earth, or things like that. It's affected by the elemental resistance of that target. But in this case, and it's not stated, this 21 damage will be damage to any target. Now, going back to my original point. For melee classes, you see this skill used a lot. For elementalists, you never see this skill. And I began to wonder, well, why not? And as crazy and as maybe I think a lot of people will think as stupid as this sounds, let's actually try it. Let's see what this does for the Elementalist Primary. So I'm going to slot this here, and we're going to take a look. We're going to do some comparisons videos here. So here I am. I'm out in Seafarer's Rest in the Jade Sea, and I'm going to take a look here and see what I can do here. And actually, I might say, yeah, I am at Seafarer's Rest. Okay. And actually, I want to go out to Reyes Crater here. Okay. So I got my team. And again, I'm just going to be doing comparisons. There's a group of accursed right outside the door here. And they're casters, so I can measure this. Okay. So starting off, again, all wands have a 11 to 22 damage. But I've actually customized these. So when I was looking at trying to increase the per click attack rate of my wand itself, this is actually one of the few cases where it does help to customize, as is the case for martial professions. And the advantage here is that you can't really compare this to a sword, a hammer, or an axe. You actually have to compare it to a bow because it is a projectile attack, and you don't have to get up into melee range with your target. You can stay back and fire away with your wand. And that gives a lot of options here. The other thing is the attack speed of the wand. With a sword or an axe, the attack speed is nominally 1.33 strikes, or 1.33 seconds per strike. With a wand or staff, it's 1.75 seconds per strike. Okay, so it's a bit lower, quite a bit, not a lot lower, but it is faster than hammers, which is around, I think, 1.8 seconds per strike, and in some cases even faster than the bow. So it falls in kind of the middle range a bit. So let's just take a look here. The other thing I'm going to compare it to is Ice Spear. Now, as I mentioned, if you're not casting, you're not doing damage in almost all the cases. So usually with any kind of elemental magic you're going to do, there are projectile attacks that kind of is your standard form of attack. And in the case of water magic, it's Ice Spear. But all of these projectiles share the same trait. They cause a good amount of damage, but it's 5 energy for a 1 second cast time plus the projectile flight time for the very first projectile. And then after that, it's 1 second between projectiles if you're casting constantly. But what's the damage difference between a Conjure weapon spell, which doesn't use any energy at all other than the initial 10 seconds, but this lasts, the 10 energy, but this lasts 60 seconds, so it's almost 0. Or using Ice Spear in this case, where I'm expending 5 energy every second just to do some amount of damage. That's not my wand. What's the difference between using Ice Spear as my always go-to damage spell rather than using strictly my wand? Well, let's take a look here. So, we're going to come out here, and I'm going to jump back and forth between Seafarer's Rest and this first group. Okay, so there's the Ritualist, and here we go. So we're going to attack, and there. Okay, so now we're looking about 10. He seems to be pretty. I think he's got. Yeah, he's got armor spell. Let's find another. Okay, there's the Mesmer. Okay, 17, 16, 18, and there's the Ritualist. Okay, so the reason I switched off from the Ritualist, I think he had an armor increasing type of conjure skill that was going on. That wasn't giving the full count of the damage I would normally doing to a caster profession. So, but right there you could see the range was between around 17 to 20 damage in the medium range just for the wand. Okay, well that's not great. But let's see what I'm gonna jump back in and jump back out. Now let's just see what the Ice Spear does. Okay, so that was the wand, and also in the case of a staff, if it was customized. Okay, and let's see here. So Ice Spear. Okay, now I'm getting 67, 63. No, that's 63 again. So for each Ice Spear I'm casting, I'm getting about 3 times the damage of my normal wand attack per cast. But for per cast, I'm spending 5 energy. That's pretty good. I mean, actually, and the attack rate with my Ice Spear is actually faster than my wand, because again, the wand is 1.75 attacks. 1.75 seconds per attack, while the Ice Spear is 1 second for a cast time. So, yeah, why use a wand ever? Well, let's take a look here and just see what the difference is. Now, if I can use my Conjure Frost spell and see what the difference is, I can do the same thing as doing with Ice Spear, but without spending the energy to do it. How close do I actually get to the damage of Ice Spear? Let's take a look here. Now I'm going to take this on a per attack basis, not taking account into attack time, which we can calculate a little bit later. Alright, so 1, and now I have my Conjure Frost. And here we go. 46, 46, 44, and there we go. And the Warrior, 33. Now, again, remember, this bypasses armor. So while the wand itself will be affected by armor, the Conjure Frost is not affected by armor. So there's 47, 45. Okay. Actually, I'll do an Ice Spear there. Okay, 63 just to finish them off. And down they go. Okay, so around 43 damage per hit. Again, I'm not hitting as fast as I would with Ice Spear, but I'm not spending any energy at all to do it. That's pretty good. Pretty good. I mean, it's a heck of a lot better. It's over 2 times better than just using the wand itself, and does about 2/3 the damage that you would have with Ice Spear per attack. Again, I'm not counting the difference in attack rate, which is 1 second for the Ice Spear and 1.75 seconds for the wand. So let's see, 1.75. That's about 75%. Well, yeah, it's a 75% increase from the wand, from the Ice Spear. So I'm not gonna calculate. I'm just go off the, kind of guesstimate, but I would say that's around a little less than half of Ice Spear on a continuous basis. Okay, but is there something I can do about that? Can I raise it up to get it actually pretty close to Ice Spear? There is, and as you can see, I'm gonna switch to Warrior, and you can take a page from the Warrior's playbook here and apply it to your Elementalist. And this is a what I call high risk, high reward type of strategy here. And you can use Frenzy. I'm going to pop this up towards the end here. Now, Frenzy is a very powerful and very dangerous skill to use at the same time, even for warriors. And that's why you don't see a lot of people use this, except in very rare cases. There's also a counterpart named Flurry, but I'll get to that in a second. What these do, they are what are called IAS, increased attack speed type of skills. So in this case, I attack for 33% faster for 8 seconds, but I take double damage. That's pretty bad if you're a warrior. If you're an elementalist, that could be deadly. So this is something you have to be very, very careful with. This is what, again, call high risk, high reward. But if you're able to use it at the right time, or you have things to help with your armor, then it can work. It can work pretty well here. The thing is this, and this is the overall strategy. This is to help mitigate damage, because this 5 energy being cast every second adds up very, very quickly in the course of battle. And as the battle gets longer and longer, using Ice Spear continuously, or Flare, or Stone Daggers, or I think it's Shock Arrow, or Air Javelin, or Lightning Javelin, and Air Magic, you're going to run out of energy. Even your Elemental Attunement is not going to keep up with the energy demand of constantly casting those projectiles over and over and over again. And you're soon going to run out of energy to cast your more powerful spells with more powerful effects. So I'm going to take a little bit of a risk here, and actually I'm going to drop my Water Attunement and move my Ice Spear, or my Conjure Frost over, and I'm gonna put Armor Mist. Again, I got Mind Freeze, got Maelstrom. Actually, you know what? I got Blurred Vision, which is nice. I'm gonna drop Ice Spear, and I'm gonna use Ice Prison. And there's a strategy here for this. So I'm gonna keep Frenzy up there, keep Mind Freeze, and yep, I think that will work. Okay. Let's see, it's a 1 second cast time for the armor. Okay, so what we're going to do is, again, I'm dropping the Elemental Attunement, and my primary attack spell is not a spell at all. It's going to be my wand. And so these spells all across the board here, other than Frenzy, are going to be used less often than what would normally be the case. So let's go out and just see how this works here, both as far as a offensive strategy and also what it does for energy. So again, coming out here, again, since we're just measuring damage, I'm not going to do hard mode just yet. Okay, so there's my bad guys. Okay, and here we go. Now it's important to realize, are you being targeted or not? Okay, and I'm going to use that on the word. And now, since I'm not being targeted, I can use my increase modifier. And there's that. In fact, you can see the damage being reflected back at me pretty strongly. There we go. Alright, now under attack. And there's the monk. Okay, he's using retribution, so some of it's getting reflected back at me. But I was able to do between 30 and 40, sometimes 24 damage per hit. But because I'm using Frenzy, I am not attacking at the 1.75 seconds per attack speed. I'm attacking around 1.13, which is almost the same as using Ice Spear. Okay, so now we got these dragons here, and I remember these dragons are elemental dragons, which means I don't want to be using Frenzy anywhere near these guys unless I know for certain they are not targeting me. So let's take a look. Okay, Conjure Frost. And this time, drop this. And they do a lot of knockdown, so I'm actually going to get out of the way here. And now I'm going to drop Maelstrom. Okay. I'm going to put my armor on, and then I'm going to use my attack speed. He's down. If he's not targeting me, I'm going to use Maelstrom again. Okay, he just got really up close to me, so I'm going to get out of the way here. 40. Just define his mouth. And here, yeah, and there you see the damage just adding up pretty quickly without a huge energy investment at all. And even with casting Ice Spikes, Maelstrom, Mind Freeze, Frenzy, I didn't really dip below less than 2/3 because I was able to use my Conjure spell as my primary source of damage rather than my projectile spell, which would have been eating 5 energy per attack. Okay. And again, this applies for both fire and electrical as well. So, okay, so we're here. Here we go. Okay, they're not attacking me directly, so I can start firing away here. And down it goes. Okay. So Ice Prism. Sure doesn't go anywhere. Okay, Spirit. There's the Irakuji. There we go. Still doing good, pretty good amount of damage there. Okay, so again, it's high risk, high reward using that Frenzy, and you got to be very, very smart about it. So, okay, so here's more dragons. They're using Dragon Stomp. So, then lock these guys in place. Drop it down. There we go. I know they're not going to hit me, so I'm going to start wailing on them. And just cut them down here. And as I'm doing this, I'm recharging energy with my natural recharge rate. So it's a little counterintuitive of normally playing the Elementalist, where you're just slinging spells everywhere and you're coming under energy pressure as the fight goes on. Now let's go back to Seafarer's Rest here. And we're going to click on hard mode and just see how the difference is with hard mode. Okay, so I think here's Reyes Crater again. Yep. And we're going to take a look. In fact, let me see. Do I want to switch anything up here? You know, I am. I'm going to take this one out. And I'm going to put in Deep Freeze instead. And I am going to use since I got two of these high powerful skills, I'm gonna replace my Ice Prison with Glyph of Blessed Energy. There we go. Okay, now let's just see how this works here. Now, as I mentioned, you can use Flurry instead of Frenzy, and that can be a pretty good option too. You get a little bit of a damage reduction because it cuts your damage output by 33%, but only to your primary weapon. It does not count or cut down the damage from Conjure Frost or Conjure Flame. So it's a tiny little bit coming down, but it's probably a much safer option. I didn't buy the skill yet. I'm just using Frenzy for demonstration purposes and kind of show the maximum damage you can get here. Okay, so there's Necromancer. Okay, we'll use Conjure. Get out there. Oh, and that is why you don't want to use Frenzy. So that can be a nasty, nasty hit. Okay, let's see here. We're gonna drop Maelstrom. I'm gonna pop up armor. 33. Alright. This guy's getting annoying. That. And drop that. Now I'm under attack. And now I can use Frenzy. Okay, so not bad other than the fact that I got attacked with Frenzy on, which is a very dangerous situation. That's more to do with Frenzy. And oh yeah, these Rockhide Dragons out here are very, very bad. Because in hard mode they do a lot more damage. But let's see here what we can do. Let's see. Okay, so we're going to stop here. I'm going to try and pull these guys. Oh. I just got a fire weapon. There we go. I run, and I got the Gale. Okay. Now I gotta drop Maelstrom down. Get these guys interrupted. There we go. Now it's safe for me to use. Now it goes. Okay, comes Dragon Stomp. Oh, looks like I got interrupted. Very good. Okay, and there's his mouth. Woo! Decided to take a shot at me, but down he goes. Okay. Goes down. And time to tear him down. And there he goes. Okay, well actually that went decent. I think only Panaku bit the dust there, but that's pretty typical for assassins because they dive right in and they don't have a ton of armor. But yeah, so that's using a conjure weapon spell if you're an elementalist. It provides some interesting options and interesting ways to play the elementalist that I never did before, and it can work. It can actually work pretty well. There's a couple things in, and that is you're not always strictly have to use your elemental attunement for your energy management. There are other ways to do it. As I showed before, there's second wind. There are glyphs which you can use, but this one, Conjure Frost or Conjure Lightning or Conjure Fire, gives you the option of doing a decent amount of damage for no cost and allows you to regenerate energy naturally without exhausting it by continuously firing your projectile spells like, again, Ice Spear, Flare, Stone Daggers, etc. Now, these Conjure Weapon spells, again, as I mentioned, they're only in water, air, and fire. Earth Magic doesn't have it, unfortunately. There is a way to shoehorn in if you really want to. It's not really worth it, in my opinion. That's actually the Elite Ebon Dust Aura in the Dervish line. It does the same thing, but only lasts 30 seconds. And it's not really meant for Elementalists, so it's really meant for Dervish. But it does the same thing. It changes, or I should say, it gives that plus X amount of earth damage if you're wielding an earth weapon. It applies the same thing. And you can do it that way if you want, but in my opinion, as an elementalist, it's not really worth it, especially when you have 3 other elements to choose from. So, anyways, that's my review for the Conjure Element spell, in this case, Conjure Frost. Play with it. It's not as crazy as it sounds, at least in my practice right now, as using it. It shows some options, particularly if you use an IAS with it. And you don't have to use Frenzy. In fact, unless you're really experienced and you know who's going to attack what, I would not recommend Frenzy. I'm just using it for demonstration purposes here. I'd recommend Flurry, because that gives you the same thing with a little bit of damage reduction, but you don't have that double damage risk to it. So I highly recommend to use Flurry instead of Frenzy. I just don't want to, fork over the 1 platinum just to demonstrate it, especially when I got this for free when I did the profession change. If you are more experienced and you want to get that extra little bit of damage, by all means you can use Frenzy. There are other attack speed modifiers in the warrior line, but they are in the strength profession or strength attribute line, which is the primary attribute line for warriors, which you don't have access to, so it doesn't make sense to use those IASs, such as Berserker's Rage or Tiger Stance or things like that. One other option is to use Tiger's Fury. It's more expensive, but you can bring along a pet, and that's from the Ranger line. That's from the Ranger Beast Mastery line. You're going to spend quite a bit more energy using that. About 10 more energy per time you use it rather than 5. But you can use it with a pet. So instead of using all ice magic, fire magic, or electrical magic, if you want to change it up a bit and you want to bring a pet along, well, that comes along as well in the Beast Mastery line. It's called Tiger's Rage, or I think Hecate's Rampage. There's a duplicate skill as well. I think that's what it's called. So, anyways, something you can play around with. It's not crazy, at least in my opinion. It's not crazy, and it gives you a few more options. Again, the one vulnerability is, again, like all enchantment spells, it can be stripped, it can be shattered, and then you're kind of out of the spell, especially for such a long recharge at 45 seconds. But again, that runs the normal risk of using any high valued enchantment. So there's ways around that. You can cover this enchantment. You can use Aura of Restoration to use. It's a good cover enchantment, so you can put this on and then put Aura of Restoration after that to give it a cover, and strategies like that. So, anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this review, and I'll be sure to do some more. Okay, take care, guys. Bye bye.